So Russell, we're doing this thing, right?
Yeah, it's come a long way, but we're here now, so it's all good. There's always a perfect sweet spot timing on everything, just like cricket says. You eat too early,
Yeah.
you can sky the ball and get caught. You eat too late, you can get bowled. Yeah, so ideally we're here.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you to you, right? Just straight off the bat, thank you to you. I think we recorded a podcast before. I think between both of us, we feel like there's a level of synergy. We agree on a lot of things. We think similar on a lot of things, but at the same point in time, we have our differences because we're unique individuals. And I think I'm really looking forward to these conversations with you in particular, because for me as a mental performance coach, it's I think it's time, right? It's time that the narrative in South African cricket shifts.
Mm.
And I think that's why these conversations are important for me. Yeah.
It's always good to have a nice unpack, deep conversation. There's always value in it. I've always phrased it as talk is not cheap, it's expensive. So let's go for it.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. Russell, maybe just so that everybody knows, your title is, team culture. What was it?
Yeah, it's culture catalyst for the most part. I
Team
used to
culture
look at,
catalyst. Yes.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I found that the culture aspect was something that is going to become very prevalent, in cricket circles, in particularly, well, it's across industry actually, to be honest. But cricket circles is a perfect metaphor personification of culture.
Mhm.
And initially, culture it exists everywhere with all teams. But to enhance it, you really need a catalyst. You need someone to spark it along, to create a little bit positive change towards it. So team culture catalyst is really my preferred niche right now, having experimented, coming from a performance analyst background. I found that focusing on the culture, focusing on the soft skills, the mental side of the game, like you do, is a strong new phase or trend that the game has kind of gone into. And I think it's a must have for particularly South Africa and the Proteas
Mhm.
as they're about to go into their little stint. So
Yeah.
this is what interests me big time, and it's why
Mhm.
I'm wired essentially. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
I think you'll agree with me on this, that normally, and you reference these words there, the soft skills, right? That's what we're
Yeah,
going to get into. Um, and as you said that, and I know we've had a little bit of a conversation in setting all of this up, but as you said that, I think it's time to rephrase that. It's not the soft skills; it's the tough skills.
yeah,
It's the skills that are demanding quite a lot of us to step into spaces of discomfort, normally on the inside of us, um, within a group environment. And
mm,
obviously that means a whole bunch of things, but yeah. And so I'm excited to unpack that, as you say, with you, together doing this
yeah.
thing
Likewise.
where we run down this path of uncovering the things that affect teams, individuals, as we go as South African cricketers, and why it is that things have played out in the way that they've played out, and how we can be
Mm,
better as a collective, because I loved what you said when we sort of met with our first time on these conversations around this idea that it's not going to take one individual. It's going to, I said to my wife when I spoke with her, it's going to take a village, right? That's sort of the idea that resonates really well with me. And so you and I are having these conversations with the intent of opening up the conversation to the wider South African cricketing community, so that we can shift that narrative that plays out on the couch, that plays out next to the braai, that plays
mm.
out at the nets when the coach is engaging with the cricketer. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, like I said, I'm really, really looking forward to that. You know,
Yeah, and I like also just to add there, Jody. I like the fact that the distinguishing aspect between hard skill and soft skill in a way. Number one, I mean, the hard skills, South Africans are hugely talented. We're always going to have an abundance of talented cricketers and performers and players. We have it, oversupply in a sense, right? So this is not really in terms of time sparse. It's not really about whether we can or we do have the capabilities. We do definitely do. It's just a matter of finding a way into doing it together, i.e., the concept of teaming. How well do we come together? And secondly, how much how much cognizance do we give towards those soft skills, which are the things
Mm,
that really comes and surprises us because we kind of either relegate it, ignore it, or pretend as if it's not really that important, but it is
mm,
because at those obscure times it comes back to bite us. So we kind of need to give it some form of credence, some form of conversation. And what we're going to be having is conversations that might be somewhat difficult and tough, and this is what people tend to avoid. But once you push through that discomfort, there's lots to be gained, and I think that's
mm.
what I'm excited about as well. So
Yeah, yeah. We decided, I think involuntarily, it kind of just happened right through our first
yeah,
couple of conversations, that this idea of lifting the covers came as
yeah,
the overarching topic or idea, right? And I think
yeah,
I want to make it clear to everybody that's listening into these conversations that that's our intention, right?
mm,
I've been in the cricketing ecosystem in South Africa at all levels, from juniors coaching 5 and 6 year olds all the way through to international level. I always say I was blessed as a coach, right? A lot of coaches just zone in on a specific age or a specific. I had the opportunity to work across that spectrum, with from beginner to elite to uh, from young to old,
yeah,
and so I think coach education, all sorts of angles, right? And I
yeah,
think that places me in a unique position to have an understanding of the cricketing ecosystem within South Africa from a wide ranging areas, right? And I
mm,
know,
mm,
that you've also been involved within that system.
mm,
Um, and so this idea is that we want to lift the covers, right? We've agreed that we're not necessarily going to name and shame, because it's not about ridiculing people and sort of just looking at the negatives, but to lift the covers, to see what's there, and then to find ways, or to talk about ways that potentially we need to go as a cricketing nation to ensure that we can ultimately achieve the winning of world trophies.
yeah. Yeah, I love that metaphor. So that's why when we chose it, in a sense, we chose to go with it, it spoke to, like, from a cricketing point of view. If you think about it, you come to a match that's predetermined and it's been under covers, particularly if the weather's been a little bit obscure. Anything can be under that cover. We don't quite know what we're going to expect until we actually pull the covers back and to reveal what's there. Might have been a little bit of moisture, might not even been prepared well. So we have to kind of be responsive to the conditions that might be underneath those covers. And that's just the nature of cricket. I mean, we're just talking a cricket metaphor or cricket analogy, but that's it's very similar to real life, where we kind of need to peep underneath and see what it is. And when we confront it head on with a sense of awareness, it creates this kind of maturation for us to be
Mm,
able to go and say, okay, how do I contend with this? How do I
mm,
deal with it? Let's not ignore it. Doing the opposite of actually sweeping things under the cover and kind of
mm,
pretend it's not there. But let's lift it, let's air it out, and let's get it out in the end, and then we move forward, and the game can
mm.
progress, and we all
Yeah.
can progress. And that's the beauty of this whole thing about lifting the covers. It's something that we're not trying to point out faults, but we kind of say, what are we realistically dealing with? And then
Mm,
as a result of it, we're going to need all heads put together, all expertise on deck, in a sense.
mm,
The unique thing, what you were speaking about earlier, you've come from that that length or that spectrum of influence. I've landed up in the professional side of things, and yet we can have the language. So it's
mm,
the same sort of thing that goes for juniors as well as the other end of the senior professional. And yet now we can bring all of that together. All voices matter, all contributions matter. And the more heads we put together, the more closer we can come to some form of answers and
mm,
do it together, lift this cup together. Because I think it's going to take us all to add our energy and our support to be able to lift this cup as a nation. And that's the
mm.
beauty of what we're starting here. This conversation can lead to big things. And I'm inviting anyone and everyone to be a part of it who's interested. So that's the
Yeah,
main thing.
yeah, definitely. So in the course of our conversations, we are going to use a little bit of language, right, that
Yeah.
people might not be used to. And so I think we both thought that it might be a good idea to just talk through one or two of these concepts very briefly, so people know if we speak about it, then there's
Yeah.
at least a mutual understanding, right? So I think a concept that would come through quite strong, right? And it's a bit more your language than it is mine. is this idea of playing as winners. So feel free to maybe just elaborate on that for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I think the understanding is that winning tends to happen on the inside first. We need to realize that we are already champions. I mean, if you think about a team that's selected to go and represent at the World Cup in this regard, right? They've already achieved some measure of success just by being chosen. So they part of I think it's 15 squad members, and they would be embarking on this bid to kind of win the victory, win the cup at the end of the day. But if they don't come from a space of already having won some form of victory, which is to be selected to be a representative of us all, then that kind of energy needs to be sustained. It happens like that throughout of life. If you think about champions, champions are ones who are carrying themselves, whether they've lift or get to lift the cup themselves or not. And that takes precedence. It comes before you're actually getting a cup. So playing as winners suggests that there's an inner winner that you have to tap into before you can become this outer winner. So what we're looking for throughout this, as we look closely towards the Proteas and have conversations about it, how many of them are actually identifying with this inner winner and getting a chance to personify and express that. And not just individually, as you would be looking, but more as a team, as a collective, as are they standing together as a unified bunch of winners? And are they teaming together as these winners? Because then success is almost guaranteed. You shouldn't be almost kind of surprised when they lift the cup. They were showing that they were winners all the while, and that's why they have the cup at the end of the day. So that's the whole analogy. Don't play to win. Play as winners. Play from a place of victory already. Now, some people find that to be a taboo subject, but that's how life works. If you have a thought in your head, you think about going to a particular place, you kind of find yourself doing that. So that's how life works from inside out. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about playing as winners.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's often where the toughest work is, right? Is that ability to shift away from the am I good enough, the doubts, the fears, which we all have, which we all experience, to a place of not letting those things hold us back. Sometimes it's not even about overcoming that or dealing with it. It's more just about accepting that there's this part of us that there is going to be fear, there is going to be doubts. However, maybe it's through conscious choice, or it is through a complete shift of intentionality or understanding of ourselves as a human being first, into a place that's more healthy, more optimal for performance. Whether some other people might use language around self-esteem, self-worth, all of those sort of topics play around this idea of playing as winners. That it's something that's embodied first before you can go out there and express it to the world.
And it's also the whole concept of when you draw the covers back, those are the things that are hidden down under the covers, almost like the Rocky Balboa analogy of it's in the basement stuff, the things that kind of haunt you. So unless you're equipped and feel confident enough to address it, taking the hits and keep moving forward type of thing, like Rocky Balboa would say, that's the kind of thing. You need to be that champion already and keep pushing beyond the challenges. And only then can you really overcome. That's when you find yourself to be an overcomer and a winner, despite what the result of the match might be.
So you mentioned this word, I think you've mentioned it twice already, the idea of teaming. And what that means, right? Because I think that's a word that will come up quite a lot. That's something that we'll reference quite a lot. Maybe just expand on that a bit.
Yeah, so teaming is has been a partially recent kind of awareness that people have come to, in a sense that, and particularly within the cricket sphere, in that nowadays we have modern day cricket is becoming free agents. So we don't have the stability of teams. Players are going in and out from one team to the next. So they need to be able to have this flexibility. Teaming is simply teamwork on the fly, which means the members of the team are constantly changing, and they need to find a way to actually work as a team. So teaming really, if you don't get that right, you don't really have an expertise or an awareness of how this works. You're not going to find that clicking, that synergy, that holistic cohesion early enough so that you can guarantee championships. You will have great performances, maybe individual great performances, but ultimately to how well a team gels and how quickly a team gels and comes together, working teamwork on the fly, will guarantee success more times than not. And that's kind of where the world is now, with the, like I said, with the free agency. And I feel like this is something that's going to be one of those things that's under the cover that we have to be aware of, so that we can accept the challenge and respond appropriately. I want to just, if it's okay with you, I would like to elaborate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a funny thing when we were talking about tag teaming. Now, most people, when you hear about tag teaming, and we're doing this conversation in a tag teaming fashion, if you think about tag teaming, automatically you think about wrestling scenario where I'll punch out and you come in and you fight the opposition. And that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We kind of tag teaming, spending out, sharing ideas and so forth. And we are hoping that the greater community we're speaking to would do similar, expand this conversation, keep doing the tag teaming. And that's how we're going to get victory over this. The analogy is also even a little bit more deep and a little bit ironically quite funny, because we're all talking about the chokers tag. So we are also teaming up to address this tag, which is the chokers tag. And that's why we tag teaming here, because for the most part, Proteas are actually regarded as chokers or anti-chokes, if you want to call it that. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to team up so that we can kind of push beyond this kind of tag of chokers and become the champions already, and realize it's time now, as you said earlier, to kind of look at everything for what it really is and move into it. So that's what tag teaming is all about, really. So we can get to that.
And maybe just on that, I'm thinking that obviously people will listen to this. And so my first question to everybody watching and listening into and following us in this little thing that we're doing here is, what's the quality of the conversations you are having with the people around you? Because you're also part of the success of the South African cricket team. Maybe it's your child that's 7 years old at this point in time that's going to be a next Proteas batter. Or maybe they're just going to be a scorer or an administrator or an umpire or a coach down the line. And the influence we have on them when we sit and watch the South African cricket team to make offhandish random comments like, oh, here we go again, we never change, it's just the same way. That record has been played so many times, and it lives so well within us as a cricketing society, that at a nets, a coach will just say, oh yeah, there we go again, and that type of stuff gets stuck. And so it really is an opportunity for us to team, not just between you and me as we go and tag teaming, but to team with the cricketing community to say, how do we actually change the dynamic of this narrative? How do we shift it? How do we make it different? And I think one of the ways is to start becoming aware of the conversations that we are having and how we're having them. And if we're okay with them just playing out in the way that they do.
Yeah, 100%. And this type of conversation is ready to create this champion circle, this bigger community, make the circle bigger, because we can lift the kind of caliber of our conversations. If we can spot the silver lining, as the Proteas are time after time pursuing the silverware, right? We can lift the lid because there's silver lining benefit here. So for me, just in phrasing this, I call it the sippy cupping. For silverware, right? In that phraseology, what I understand there is that the Proteas are very much like 5-year-olds, right? So you just use the kids as an example and the parents and so forth. It's an ideal overlap here. So if you think about a kid that's, struggling, young kid that cannot really hold a cup and drink properly, the Proteas are attempting to go for this World Cup. So it's metaphorical. You can use the same sort of analogy. As a kid who cannot really drink from a cup, you would kind of either tilt too much, spill all over himself, all those sorts of things, makes a mess out of things. So what you then do as a safety mechanism, you put this lid on with a little straw and a sippy cup, so it's easier to not spill. And I feel like that's where the Proteas needs to be. Instead of trying to really down this massive cup, they need to take a little bit of sips, because what also then happens as a metaphorical reality for kids that kind of throw too much liquid into their mouths without the lid, without the safety mechanism, they can then choke off that liquid that they're trying to consume. So this is what happens with the Proteas. They're trying to drink too much or to consume too much at once. They really need to take sips, safety sips, and try and unpack it together. So as the Proteas are bidding for this silverware and this glory, there's a silver lining benefit conversation that we as a community can be having as we watch our heroes on TV, trying their best to kind of overcome this. We ourselves can grow the language, grow the types of conversations into a champion type of conversation, really, and create this champion circle.
Yeah. Russell, I'm really chomping at the bit here, right? And this is the first step and a little introduction to everyone, just in terms of where we're going and what our plans are. So I really want to just say before we finish this one that I want to encourage everyone to comment below our videos, to ask questions, to if they find articles or anything that's said out there, to tag us in links to that so that it can become part of our conversation that we're busy having going forward. I'm excited to see the narrative of the team and how that unfolds. I'm very aware at the previous World Cup, I took like screenshots of every article, what players were saying, and it was remarkable to see how that narrative shifted, where it started and where it went as we went deeper in the tournament. So I'm excited for this, for the next month, to be unpacking those sort of things with you, to say, hey, we're noticing this thing. Let's see how it's going to play out. And then we can go sit and watch how it plays out. And so I'm really honored to be having these conversations with you. And I want to just say thank you for choosing me to partner on this, that we can dance around each other, tag team our way through a couple of conversations that hopefully can have an impact, a lasting impact on the cricketing system within South Africa.
Yeah, Jody, thanks so much. I mean, it's really it's a matter of mirroring for each other. So what you show to another, you give to yourself as well. So likewise, I'm very much honored and very excited about what can come out of our conversations. We've already seen, just in casual conversations, how things can lead us down a certain pathway, and we get surprised by it. So this is why I feel like whatever the Proteas bid is towards that type of glory, we will experience that in conversation. And hopefully beyond as well. So I'm very excited as well. So let's go on this road.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Everybody, we'll see you in the next one. Please follow along. And Russell, I'm looking forward. Let's go.
Here we go.
Cool.